Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we're looking at the last theme deck from the Invasion set, which is Spectrum. This is very exciting because it is the first 5-color deck we're looking at. Not the last, because there's a few of them in this block. But yeah, it's just really exciting to look at a 5-color deck and kind of see how it's been put together. So we have a deck list here. So we have 18 creatures, 8 sorceries, 8 instants, 4 enchantments, and 22 land. Mostly, obviously, with forests, because even though it's a 5-color deck, it's going to be predominantly green to do all that land fixing and mana fixing to enable you to cast some of these spells. So let's look at some of these spells. So let's look at some monocolored ones first. So it's not a great start because we're going to look at Wayfaring Giant, who is 6 mana for a 1/3, which is obviously not good, but he gets +1/+1 for every basic land type among lands you control. So there is a small like domain theme in Invasion, and that carries through into Plane Shift, which is the set we'll be looking at next. So in this deck, So he can get potentially +5/+5 from that ability. So he could be 6 mana for a 6/8. Which is okay. Just obviously requires a lot of work getting there. But and even then, when you get him to 6/8, he's got no abilities beyond that. He's just a big fat creature. Yeah. So not a great start. Not too exciting. Wayfaring Giant. Then we have 2 of the Djinns. So these are part of a cycle. They're in every color. And they're sort of like fairly decently costed for their size and abilities, but they all have like this drawback, which is if their color is the most common color on the board, they get -2/-2. So Zanam is a 5/6 flyer and Halam is a 6/5 haste. So, for those costs, like pretty good size bodies, like 6 mana for a 5/6 flyer is pretty good. Same with Halam Djinn, like 6 mana for a 6/5 haste is pretty good. But obviously those drawbacks are pretty horrible. But in this, you're kind of playing lots of cards of different colors, so potentially it could be okay. And then 2 Kavu Climbers, just 3/3s. When they come in, draw a card. That's all right. And then we have a few more green creatures because it just stands to reason. So the deck has a bigger focus towards green, to help you actually get the land and mana to cast all the other multicolored spells. So Nomadic Elf is a way of doing that. 2 mana for a 2/2, which actually makes it better than Grizzly Bears. I think this is maybe the first card that was like strictly better than Grizzly Bears, just because it's a 2/2 for 2 with no drawback and an ability. The ability's not great. It's 1 color and 1 green. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So it is some very inefficient mana filtering, but it's better than nothing. And then we have 2 Korean Trailblazers. This is 4 mana for a 1/2, but does rampant growth. Search your library for a basic land, put it into play tapped, and if you do, shuffle. That's okay. As I say, it's okay. That's pretty expensive for that effect. Yeah. Yeah. There's so many cards similar to this in future sets. This just gets better, this effect. But this, I think, one of the first ones that did this, when it comes in just straight up rampant growth. But it's welcome in this deck. 1 Serpentine Kavu, it's 5 mana for a 4/4. Spend 1 red, gets haste until end of turn. Haste obviously only matters the turn you play it, really. So really you could look at it as being 6 mana for a 4/4 haste, I guess. Yeah, that's fine. Just, it has a decent body. And then 3 Thornscape Apprentices. So this is probably my favourite of the Thornscapes. Not the Thornscapes, of the Scapes. Because there's 1 in each colour, along with the Masters, which unfortunately we didn't see in any of these decks. Because I really like the Scape Masters. They all have like big, fun abilities. Which are like fairly decently costed, considering, really. But yeah, so Thornscape, 1 green mana for a 1/1, 1 white tap type creature. We've seen that ability before on stuff like Master Decoy and Benlish Trapper. It's just very good. Paying a single mana to lock down a big creature is very, very good. And 1 red mana to give a creature first strike until end turn. Again, like first strike, always a good ability to give to things, either when attacking or defending. First strike is always welcome. And then we have a few multicolored creatures, not as many as I would have liked in a 5-color deck, but it is what it is. So we have 2 Yavimaya Barbarian, who's a 2/2 for 2, has protection from blue, that's fine. 2 Voracious Cobra, which is a 2/2 for 4 with first strike, and when it deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature. I used to think this card was crazy overpowered, which is very charming. Looking at it now, like it's fine. Obviously, like it's still a nightmare to try and deal with in combat because no one wants to get in the way of this or be blocked by it. But yeah, I think that's like that's a fairly decent creature. I think essentially first strike and death touch on the same body is pretty scary to deal with. And then one of the rares in the deck is Sabertooth Nishoba, which is 4 colors, green and white, for a 5/5 trample, pro blue, pro red. Yeah, it's just a big dumb creature, which is fine. And it will definitely end a game. But yeah, that's fine. So then there's 3 split cards. So Wax and Wane and Spite and Malice have shown up in previous decks we've looked at. These are basically fine. I think Wax and Wane is the better one just because it's basically always useful as a combat trick or destroy an enchantment. Spite and Malice, I feel both sides of that are overcosted for what they do. Assault and Battery, I think, along with Wax and Wane, is actually I say it's joint best with Wax Wane because Assault is always useful to do 2 damage to a creature or player, admittedly at sorcery speed, but like that's always useful. And Battery is just make a 3/3 token for 4, which again is like paying maybe a little bit more because that's what Hill Giant stats, but like both those options are always useful. Whereas Spite and Malice is a little more conditional, and they're both very expensive for kind of what they do. But yeah, it's just nice. I would have liked to see really like all 5 of these split cards in this deck, really. If you're using all 5 colors, why not have all 5 of the split cards? And what are the other ones? Stand and Deliver and Pain and Suffering. Yeah, those are the other ones. And yeah, they're not in here, which it just feels like a weird omission. And then we just have like a kind of honestly, a bit of a random grab bag of spells. So Global Ruin, 5 mana sorcery is the other row in the deck. Each player chooses from the lands they control a land of each basic land type, then sacrifice the rest. So if someone's playing only 1 color, they're in for a bad time. But ideally, you would use this against this when you've got 1 land of each color, so you get to keep 5 lands, and your opponent only gets to keep 2, maybe 3. Super unfun spell. I think mass land destruction is like really unfun, honestly. Because it just means you lock someone out of the game and they just can't play the game, and that's just not fun for them. But it makes sense in this deck just because you're going for you're trying to get all your lands out, or you're using multiple colors. It makes sense, but I don't approve of it. And then 2 probes, which is 2 and a blue to draw 3 and then discard 2. And if you kick it for 1 and a black, target player discards 2 cards. So kind of that's fine. Exclude, counter target creature spell, draw a card. That's pretty good for 3. I quite like that. And then Tribal Flames is a domain burn spell. So X damage target creature player, where X is the number of basic land types amongst lands you control. Yeah, I just remember playing like cards like all like the domain cards like this, and just having to kind of keep reminding people like it's not the number of basic lands you control, it's the number of types you amongst them you control, and just some people just could not get their head around that. And then thankfully we have 3 Harrows, so I think this is like a good mana fixer spell. I really like Harrow. I really liked it when it was in Zendikar. Because it's instant speed, which I really like as well. I think having an instant speed mana fixer is really good. 2 cards in green, additional cost, sacrifice a land, search life for up to 2 basic land cards, put them into play, not tapped, which is really nice. And then shuffle. Yeah, so really good that there's 3 Harrows in here to help you get all the lands you need out. And then 3 Fertile Ground, which gives you extra mana of any color when you tap the enchanted land. So yeah, really good to see almost full play sets of both of those to help get you the colors you need. Ordered Migration, 5 mana to get a 1/1 blue bird for every basic land type amongst lands you control. So really, ideally, what you want to be getting at least 3 tokens from that. So I think break even. I think 5 mana for 3 flying tokens is a decent rate. Getting 5 from this, yeah, you know, that's obviously that's the dream. Yeah, getting 1 or 2, like you just you just wouldn't bother. Well, actually, you can't get 1 from it, can you? Because you would have to have at least 8 planes and then islands out. Anyway, I'm just rambling now. And then Fires of Yavimaya. This was, I think this is another all-star from Invasion, really. Just a fairly cheap enchantment, gives all your creatures haste, and you can sacrifice it to for no cost, other than sacrificing it, obviously, to give a creature +2/+2 land of turn. Yeah, I just think Fires of Yavimaya is pretty good. But let's what could have been. So this feels like a really weird selection of cards. And not these that I've picked out, but like the actual cards in the deck. It really does feel like a bit of a grab bag of things. Like, I don't know. It doesn't seem to. It feels a bit muddled. Again, it just feels like a bit of a pile of cards thrown together. Like, sure, we're doing a 5-color deck. What are we going to put in? Like, well, we'll put in a few domain cards, but like also random like these Jins, I guess, and like some, I guess, like green-red multicolored creatures, I guess, and one of the rares is sure, Phantom Nishoba, of course. Like, it's just a random green-white big creature. It's a bit weird. So I'm really surprised Dream Thrush isn't in there. So Dream Thrush is a card that's shown up in the Dismissal deck that we've looked at already. So it's a flyer that taps and it turns a basic land into another basic land type. So that could have really helped in here, like turning on like certain domain effects or like fixing mana. So really surprised that wasn't in there. Korean Elves is basically just like a mana dork, but it comes in, you choose a color, and it can tap to add green or a mana of that color. So again, would have just been nice to have sort of those in there. And then like alternative rares, because like, I think the rares in here are pretty bad, honestly. Sabertooth Nishoba and the was it Global Ruin? Yeah, the one that destroys lands. So let's address the elephant in the room. Why does it not have Coalition Victory? You've got a 5-color deck. Why do you not go with a big Coalition Victory? This is like one of the most iconic cards from Invasion. Yeah, it's a big expensive sorcery, yeah, but it's just like it says you win the game. That's super exciting. Like if you got that in a pre-constructed deck, just like, whoa, this card just outright says you win the game. Like for a new player, that's so exciting. Yeah, I feel like the deck would have to be like you'd have to do more work to it to be able to hit the creature of every color, because there isn't actually a creature of every color in this deck as is. There's actually no black creatures, which feels weird. But yeah, anyway, I understand why Coalition Victory is not in here, but it just feels like a missed opportunity. And if I ever get to talking about dual decks, we're going to talk about Coalition Victory as well. Then Tech, I think, could have been fine. This is just an artifact creature, and like it just gets various bonuses depending on which lands you have, and I just think that fits in quite well with what's going on. I mean, at best, this is a 4/4 first strike flying trample, which is actually for 5 mana, that's actually pretty good. But yeah, I just think that would have been a fun kind of dumb rare to have. And then Collective Restraint, which is like propaganda, but like tied to a domain. So creatures can't attack unless you basically pay the domain cost. And Spirit of Resistance, if you control a permanent of every color, prevent all damage that will be dealt to you. Again, that would have been like a really cool, big, flashy rare, but yeah. So in summary, I think it's a brave effort for a 5-color pre-constructed deck. I think Domain, which is in Plane Shift, which we're looking at next, I think that does a better job of what this one's trying to do. This feels like kind of the prototype, and then Domain, I think, does a better job of it. But we'll look at that when we get to it, which will be, yeah, it will be soon, because that was all the invasion theme decks. I mean, I'd really like to hear what you think about this Spectrum deck, like what you think about looking at it, or if you had it, or what changes you'd make to it. But yeah, I'll be back next time. I'll be making a start on the Plane Shift theme decks. But until then, thank you for watching and listening, and have a good day.